Welcome back to Questions for Dad, the podcast where we tackle the conversations and lessons so many young men are searching for. Whether you grew up with a strong father figure or you're trying to figure things out on your own, this is a place where we can learn from men who have walked the path before us. Today, I'm honored to have Tyrel Greenwade on the show. Ty is a man of faith, a husband, a father, and a leader who knows what it takes to push through challenges and grow into the man you're meant to be. He's someone who embodies ambition, purpose, and perseverance, things that every young man needs to develop. We're going to dive into some real conversations about ambition, how to stay motivated when life gets tough, and what it means to grow as a man of character. If you've ever struggled with direction or wondered how to chase your goals while staying grounded in faith, this episode is for you. Ty, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Asaya.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're here.
You bet. So I grew up in rural Arizona. Luckily, I had a great father that led us along the way, me and my one brother and sister. And I'm 41 years old. I have 4 kids, and now we live in Flagstaff, Arizona.
That's awesome. Let's go ahead and jump right in and start with this. What does ambition mean to you?
What does ambition mean to me? Um, I don't know that I would have any kind of special, uh, definition in, my thoughts on ambition, but I have always just had a perspective of trying to do my best, and I think an intellectual curiosity to see mistakes that I can learn from, and then continue on the path of growth from there.
I like that a lot. I like the idea of sort of staying on that path and moving forward. The first big question we're going to have for you today is, what are some of the sort of habits or routines you've developed that have helped you stay focused on your goals?
Um, Again, I guess I would struggle to maintain a routine that I've kept with, all throughout, my life. It kind of ebbs and flows, and so having a broad view of where I want to go, and then kind of narrowing down how I'm going to get there in each step in life. And I think a lot of that begins with who you surround yourself with. And as you tackle those hurdles in life, you try to surround yourself with people that'll help you along the way.
What's sort of the best way you've found to surround yourself with those right people? How have you picked out those guys that I know you have around you that have helped you through your faith and through your life? What is kind of the story behind that friendship?
I think it's a little bit of the work that you're trying to accomplish. So you have a goal in mind, and you start working towards that, and getting out of your comfort zone to surround yourself with people that are of like mind or of like goals. So say like when you're in college and you're an engineering student and you have a tough class, getting into a study group with some of the other kids that are, trying to accomplish the same goal you are. For me, I when I was going to school, I was learning how to fly. I'm a pilot by trade, and so I started flight school, and I surrounded myself with all the guys that were going through the same training at the same time that I was, and so bouncing ideas off of each other, and that way you can kind of learn everybody else's mistakes that they were making along the way, and that process of communication with your peers helps you to clear those hurdles along the way. And then there's also an aspect of a bit of the faith aspect, where you're wanting to go. What is like the foundational beliefs that drive you, and so that is kind of also incorporated into all of that. So who you surround yourself with, that have the same um, goals spiritually as you also has made a big impact in my life.
I like that. And I know I've spoken in the past about how I've surrounded myself with people in high school, and I was very blessed with a great group of guys who have challenged me and encouraged me to grow. And I think that's really important that we all find and continue to find as we grow, not just in age, but in our faith and in our ambitions. The next thing I want to talk about is sort of a piece of advice. There's a lot of young men out there right now in positions similar to mine that are feeling stuck or very unsure about their future, unsure about how to move forward, and don't necessarily have that role model in their life every day to help get them through that stuck moment or through that moment of doubt. So, what's maybe your biggest piece of advice you'd give to people who are unsure about their future?
Yeah, I mean that's something that's totally normal. I'd tell them first that they're like not alone in that feeling. You know, life is hard. You are constantly coming up against hurdles that you need to clear, roadblocks. There's always something that is going to trip you up, and a lot of times we feel like, oh man, I'm in this by myself, or I don't know how I'm going to get through this with whatever it is, and so navigating a way to get through those hurdles, whether they're mental or something that you need to accomplish to get to the next phase in whatever you're trying to uh, accomplish in your goals. Again, finding a mentor, someone that you can talk to, that you can just bounce ideas off of, that they can give you a little bit of direction. If you're growing up without a father, um, it's not optimal. But there are a lot of men out there that enjoy, the mentorship aspect, and I feel like that is the first one of the first things that you should try to connect with is somebody who's already been through a lot of those hurdles, has made the mistakes, and can give you some advice and some counsel, some wise counsel on how to navigate where you're at, and just encouragement that you're not alone. These types of things are, everybody deals with them, and it's not uncommon. So you're not unique to whatever you're going through. Does that
Right.
make sense?
Absolutely. I think that's definitely one of the biggest things that helped me was following the absence of my father and sort of that lack of trust and that lack of faith. Me finding role models such as yourself helped me grow just because it gave me someone to confide in or someone to ask questions when I was even the simplest of questions, when I was sort of confused or just needed an answer on how to do this or how to do that. And having those people to go to answer those questions made it a lot easier and took a lot of stress off of me as a person and took a lot of pressure off because I felt like there were other people there who were going to help me and who would help me when it got tough and I wasn't sure how to move forward.
Right. Yeah. And isolation is like the biggest enemy that we all face. Just as men, it's kind of something that we do. It's hard for us to ask for help. We want to get through it on our own. And so we tend to isolate ourselves, and we are really missing out when we do that. And I feel like making ourselves vulnerable to the lies that, we can tell ourselves, the things that, uh, the stream of thoughts in our mind where are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
um the just the stream of thought that you tell yourself when you're not getting advice from somebody else can be um I guess more harmful than helpful.
Right. And I like that a lot. I remember sort of the phase of isolation that I went through when I pushed most of my emotion and most of my questions down and didn't get that out anyway. And of course that eventually would come up to bottle up and eventually spew out in the wrong ways at the wrong people, and it would a lot of times look like me lashing out at people. And definitely once I found counsel, and especially once I found my faith, it became a lot easier to move through those challenges just because I had someone or a group of people by my side who would help me through it.
Right. And getting back to, you know, the faith topic, when you can address these issues, um, surrounding yourself with men of faith, somebody who's been there and dealt with things in a way that is biblically, I guess, a biblical advice, dealing with challenges with the worldview of uh, our faith and what that looks like is, that's a learning process. That's something that you, it's really hard to go about by yourself. And when you can get some counsel from somebody who's been there and address those issues through the lens of um, the biblical, you know, construct of how to approach conflict, how to approach problems. It really changes your worldview, and that's been a key for me. And it's not something that like happens fast. I'm 41
Right.
years old. And I feel like I'm barely starting to get a handle on a lot of this. So again, the value in having a mentor is 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 huge.
Right. And I think that leads perfectly into the next question I have for you. And that is, of course, what role has your faith played in your personal and professional growth? Like, how has having your faith played into you growing as a man, as a husband, as a father, and then, of course, through your career and through the years of learning and growing?
Yeah, it's a great question. I feel like it's been on a spectrum. As I grow in my faith, I see the fruits of that and the results of that. So earlier in my career, I wasn't really walking with the Lord, and I didn't see a whole lot of fruit. And so as I've surrounded myself with mentors and my church community, faith community, I've changed a lot as a person, and my view on fatherhood and how I lead my wife, how I lead my family, has also changed, in that journey. And so I would say that it's been a huge impact, but it's been, not something that I've always had. It's something that I'm continually working on. And and the deeper I get into it, the more I put into it, the more I get out of it. Just
Right.
like anything else in life.
Right, of course. And that sort of plays into the fact that obviously the whole reason this podcast is a thing is because a lot of boys growing up don't have those fathers that discovered or are trying to discover their faith and move forward, or don't have fathers with them at all. So obviously I know you have four boys, four crazy little guys, and they most certainly follow your example on a regular basis, and they look to you for advice and how to do certain things, and as just a general role model on how life goes. So for the boys growing up without that role model, what would you say is the best way to sort of find that example, or to go out and build it sort of on your own with your mentors?
Yeah, I would say, initially it's not something that when you're growing up you really will realize that you're missing until you get older and you start looking back. And so where you place your attention, who your role models are, as a kid that's growing up without a dad in the house, sports figures, um, any kind of pop culture figures, that's kind of where we gravitate to. And man, that's going to let you down every time. Those mainly anything you place up on an idol, will let you down. So again, it kind of goes back to that foundation of finding somebody that's grounded in the faith that can lead you, and ultimately even they can let you down. So um, placing your faith in the Word and learning and pursuing the character of Christ and what that looks like um, is really the only thing that I feel like won't let you down because um, in life there's there's always challenges and there's always you know the threat of being let down. But when you kind of pursue that foundational um, message of where you put your trust in, that's that's where the special sauce is.
Right. And I definitely think that as I've grown in my faith and I'm nowhere near where I hope to be in it, it's definitely life has become easier in a way. I mean, it's difficult in ways to maintain that on a day-to-day or a week-to-week basis, but in general, life's challenges, I should say, have become less daunting.
Yeah,
And
that's the key point. Like those challenges will never go away, and if they
right,
do go away, you're probably not, you know, pushing yourself or living living a life that is as meaningful as it could be. You're always going to be faced with challenges, and it's how we deal with them. And so, yes, surround yourself with, you know, good, strong peers that will lift you up. Be vulnerable with your problems, the things that you're facing, your hurdles, and people will match that. When you're being genuine, and they'll meet you where you need help. And so that's if you're back to your question on for young men that are living without a dad, looking for that um, you know portion in their life to fill for advice, guidance. Where do they look to? Again, just be aware of where you're spending your time, who you're following on your social media, um, what you're giving your attention to, because it has an effect um, on your outlook in life.
right. And I think it's very important, especially going through high school right now and the role social media has begun to play in high school, is that we just be very intentional with how we go about our days and very intentional with who we surround ourselves with, because that will ultimately lead to really just how we feel and who we are on the inside. Just because, what you see is what you become, and what you surround yourself with is what you become. And that kind of goes perfectly into the next question I have for you. And that is, obviously we all have dreams and aspirations, and a big setback I had was obviously the absence of a father figure for several years before I started to grow that community. And the idea of the dreams and aspirations that I had had sort of died out for a minute. I got so focused on the day-to-day life and just getting through the days that I stopped chasing those dreams and those aspirations. So, what's the biggest thing you do to push through, like, doubt? What is the biggest things you do when you're chasing a dream to stay on that road even when it gets tough?
Um, it kind of goes back to work ethic, and a lot of that. I was blessed with a dad that he showed me how to work, and um, some where I get a lot of that, from growing up with my dad is when we were kids, we would do these hikes, and he's into hiking, and so that was something that he shared with us, and so we'd go on these like 50-mile hikes, couple days, and when you're little, that's like you haven't experienced anything like that before. That was one thing for me that was really hard. But when you get through it and you look back on it, I always thought, man, if I could do that, I could do anything. And so um, having that work ethic where once you accomplish something, you know that you can keep going. You can accomplish more. And so look back on your wins and use that as your encouragement to tell yourself, well, if I've done this, if I've got this far, I know that I can get up tomorrow and go 1% farther. And so that was something that always helped me in anytime I would come to, uh, a roadblock where I was like, man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get around this. I would just look back and look back on all the things that, had led me to that point and just keep pushing forward. And so you don't want to like look to the end, like, because that seems so daunting to look at your end goal, but just look at, the next day and get through that.
Right. And I really love what you said there about getting up every day and just getting through that getting up part. I know that sounds weird, but the day gets a whole lot easier when you get out of bed and you get started. And some of the biggest pieces of advice when I'm, feeling down or feeling like I can't do something, or especially a very relatable thing for a lot of people, I think, is during finals week. We had a bunch of finals every day, super tough, studying hard, overwhelmed, and a piece of advice I got from one of my teachers, or I guess he was a professor, was that every morning when you wake up, immediately do 10 push-ups and drink a glass of water, and you'll feel 10 times better. Just getting up and getting started and getting yourself ready to go for the day is such a key part of success and such a key part of pushing through those down times. And there was a quote about getting started every day, and it went like this. It said, a lot of people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 2 or 3 decades. And of course, that's on a much grander scale than every day. But it's very easy to overestimate what you can do in a day. You're going to say, I'm going to do all these things, but you don't quite get there. But if you give yourself a week to do all of those things, you'll get that done and even more. So just getting started, and like the best way to climb a mountain is to take the first step. And I think that's really big. And I think that's one of the things that definitely helped me on my journey, was that moment when I decided, okay, we're going to take the first step and we're going to get started. And it really helped. And it changed everything. It turned everything around because I finally started and I finally was on the way to the top and I had started climbing. And I'm still super far from the top. And there are still mornings where I obviously don't want to take that step at all and I want to lie in bed all day, figuratively and literally. But just getting out of bed and just getting started and just taking that first step is so critical.
Yeah, yeah, and the physical aspect of that, I feel like, is something that uh, a lot of young men who don't have a dad won't get from their moms. Their moms want to protect them and keep them safe, whereas a father will push you and physically, and so that physical aspect of that, working out in the morning, that's just awesome. It's down payment on the day, and it really does help clear your mind. And those hikes that we did when I was a kid really did instill a lot of grittiness. And I don't think that was my dad's intent with all that. He just wanted to have a good time and spend some time with us outside.
Right.
But that grittiness is something that a lot of young men who don't have a dad unfortunately don't develop. And so seeking out those types of activities where you can, push yourself obviously safely with, some supervision, Boy Scouts, anything like that, where you can get out and do some physical things with, other men will, I feel like, have an immense impact on how you deal with adversity when you get older. And I know it did for me.
Right. I love that. I love the idea of trying to get up every day and do something that's maybe difficult, maybe hard, maybe you don't want to do it, but I like what you said about down payment on the day. Just getting started off on the right foot, even if it doesn't feel like it. Because, I mean, I can say the mornings where I've woken up and I've taken a quick shower, eaten a good breakfast, and jumped right into my day, started working on stuff, I feel so much better by the time I get to the afternoon, the evening, because I've had such a productive day. I'll feel so much happier. I won't feel stressed. I'll just feel very relieved. And of course, there's a lot of physical aspects for that and practical aspects for that. But I think another thing that a lot of people don't talk about in relation to that is its role in faith and your mental state. Getting up and getting started on your faith and getting started on your mental state for the day is just as important. And getting up and maybe reading a verse in the morning is so critical. Or getting up and just thinking about how you're going to make that day better than the day before. Not necessarily in an academic way or in an athletic way or a physical way or I'm going to make my bed. Just in a how am I going to make myself feel better than I did yesterday. And I think that's a part of it that needs to be equally important and definitely helped me when I woke up and said, all right, I'm going to do XYZ to smile more today, or I'm just going to try and not be down about this or that. And it's definitely helped me, and I think it's very important to learn that skill moving forward.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You can't neglect your spiritual needs. Your daily bread. Uh, you got to get up and get into that and feed your soul every morning. That's I feel like the most important thing way
Right.
to start your day. And when you begin your day with that worldview of you're gonna seek the Lord first and then move forward, um, he'll you know things things will just fall into not necessarily fall into place, but you'll have that guidance that we all
Right. Right.
need.
And I think it's somewhere in Romans. I'm not exactly sure where, but it talks about how we can't just live off the milk, we need to live off the meat. And the comparison or analogy that's made to present day a lot of times is like church. If you go to church every Sunday, that's great. That's a good thing. But you're living off the milk. If that's all you do to grow your faith, you're just drinking milk once a week. And obviously, if you just drink milk once a week, you're not going to grow, you're not going to get stronger, you're not going to get better. You're just going to stay in the same spot or possibly digress. And the whole point was you have to eat meat every day. And that looks like maybe just reading a verse, maybe spending time in your faith, maybe spending time in fellowship with like minded people. But living off the meat a little bit every day is so critical, and it will help you grow because if you eat protein every day, you will get healthier. If you eat protein every day and you work out, you'll build muscle. And it's just like it's our faith is a muscle. We have to work it out. We have to eat the protein it needs to grow. And that looks like waking up in the morning, spending some time with the Lord, learning, reading a verse, just becoming knowledgeable and becoming trusting. And of course, trust, especially in a father figure, is very difficult, especially for people growing up without fathers. And that's something that takes time. It took time for me. But once I finally put trust in the Lord, and that happened through mentors. Once I was able to ask mentors questions and I was able to put my trust back in the Lord, at that point I was able to start working that muscle again and start eating the protein I needed to grow that muscle just like anything else. And it's turned out incredible. And I have a wonderful personal relationship with the Lord, and it all started from that. And it's not as easy as it sounds, especially if you don't have a great example there. But there are plenty of men out there. You talked about this earlier, is there are plenty of men out there who want to mentor. Either they want to pass on some knowledge, maybe they didn't have kids of their own and they want to pass on their wisdom. There are plenty of guys out there who want to help you. And I know, at least in my experience, I don't know about you, Ty, but I don't think if I could walk up to just about any man I know and say, "Hey, I've got a question about being a man. Can you help me?" I don't know a single guy that would say no to that or say no to that question. And
Yeah, absolutely. And just to touch on your um, comments about your daily walk, it's about our relationship with Christ. It's not religion, it's a relationship. And so getting to know the character of God, the character of Christ, and looking to our Father who is in heaven, our spiritual Father, because our earthly fathers, we're all human, we're all fallible. They're all gonna be imperfect, unfortunately. That's just the reality of it. But when we can spend that time focusing on this relationship and getting to know the character of, you know, our Father in heaven, that's where we'll never be let down, and where you can get the power that you need through him, not from yourself, not from like your own abilities, but drawing from him. um, that's where you'll get the strength to push through.
Right. And it's important to understand, even if it's difficult, it's important to understand that whether through this podcast, through your church, through someone you know, through a neighbor, through an uncle, that there is a large community of men out there. And there are men everywhere that want to help and want to help you grow. Or maybe just want to sit for you a bit and talk about something. It doesn't have to be a big life question. It can be, hey, how do I tie a tie? How do I change a tire? And it's stuff like that that can just help you grow a community. And it's talked about continuously, both in faith and in life and in ambition and in success. The biggest thing is community and having people around you who help you and push you and encourage you. And that is the whole goal of what we're doing here, is to build that community and to help people find the mentors and the friends they need.
Absolutely. I agree.
Man, what a conversation. Ty, I just want to thank you for taking the time to share your wisdom, your experiences, and the lessons you've learned along the way. I know there are guys out there listening who needed to hear this today. If there's one thing to take away from this, it's that ambition isn't just about chasing success. It's about growth, about becoming the kind of man who leads with purpose, serves others, and stays true to his values. And what kind of growth doesn't happen alone. So I want to encourage you, be intentional, seek out wisdom, find a mentor you can trust, and if you don't have one, know that there are men out there, including the ones on this podcast, who want to help guide you. And above all, lean into your faith, because at the end of the day, Jesus is the ultimate Father, and he's got a plan for your life, as hard as that might be. Thanks for tuning in to Questions for Dad. If this episode spoke to you, share it with a friend, leave a review, and make sure to follow for more conversations like this. And remember, you're not alone. I'll catch you next time.